a lot, and it comes like with, oh, I was just playing with you, girl. Look what you made me do to you, you know, or the occasional, you know, tap you, or you know, play fighting, or all that kind of stuff. If a person play fights, it can escalate to real fights. If a person fakes like they're going to hit you, and you know, enough to make you duck, that's not healthy. You know, certain things like that are red flags to show you where this relationship is going. It cannot get better. It's not going to be a one-time thing, and it's not, oops, I'm sorry, give me another chance to do it worse. Okay? So when a person shows you their true colors, you have to recognize it for what it is, because it's not going to get better. It does get worse.
Can you just share some of your background too, because you've worked with victims and survivors, so can you share some of your background?
Yeah, so I have been working with special operations. I'll just say that because it covers domestic violence, sexual violence, special operations for over 20 years. So I've seen young people from ages 9 all the way up to elderly 89 who were in relationships who may have started out as what they thought was normal. They just chose to like ignore red flags. And a lot of people ignore red flags because that's what they're used to. Maybe they saw their parents do that, or maybe they saw other people do that. And what people don't understand is that whatever you're reflecting it to your kids. You think you're hiding and protecting your kids from it, but your kids see that, and that's the way they will deal with their relationships like that. Oh, it's okay for mom to get hit. Oh, it's okay for mom to get yelled at. Oh, it's okay for this, you know, to happen. That's just how it is. And you'll be amazed that young people say, oh, you know, if you don't hit me, then you don't love me. You know, where that mentality comes from, their surroundings, what they've seen, and because they don't even know another outlet, you know, or know that is not what God wants.
I gotta add something in there. Something's being overlooked, and that is domestic violence. Here's the thing: these people don't just come up to you, "Hi, this is my name," and hit you the first time. There's been a connection there. So when someone, for the first time, becomes a victim of domestic violence, they still love that person. They still have a connection to that person, which means at that moment, they're trying to flesh out what is going on, what do I do? So oftentimes we'll say, he hit you once, leave, or this red flag is here, but we ignore the reality of the emotion that is inside the person.
But I love it.
Well, and we also have to realize that that's part of how a person, if that is their MO, that's how they prey on that person. Isolation, financial dependence, all these things that we got to take into account. It's easy to say, or it really may just be that person, like, they don't know how bad it is at that moment. So I know for me, you know, when I have people show up in the treatment room, sometimes I have to sit there and actually honor, like, do you still love this person? So that they can actually find out if it's love, if it's dependency. You got to flush that out before being able to tell somebody you got to leave. That can scare somebody, telling somebody you've got to leave. So not only did everything they knew just up until that minute ago change, and now you got to get them to leave. That's overlooked sometimes. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's actually realistic, that person with that emotion in that moment.
Another realistic thing is to think about, who do you love more? Yourself, your kids, or this person? And a lot of times the women choose to die over everything. So you have to actually love yourself and your kids more than the whole situation. And you make choices in that moment.
I think it's both, because it's so real. Like, I know that first time that wasn't it, because then it was like, I just love you so much, and and my self-worth wasn't where it was supposed to be. And I think a lot of times when we're in states of brokenness, we mistake those things for love, and we don't know who we are, and we've connected to these people out of our brokenness, which is why it's so important for us to be whole before we get into these relationships, because now I'm connected to you from my pain and your pain, but then all of a sudden this pain together is real dysfunctional. and it becomes violent and it becomes abusive, and I can't let you go because now I am dependent on you.
Or you have the person who says, and I had one of my early partners, he said, no one hurt you but me, which means I was protected with him except for from him. You understand how deep that is? If somebody is, or in my case, at that time, I needed protection from the outside world. So in the beginning, I was protected from the outside world, and then it changed. And so it wasn't about, do I love myself, you know, or who do I love more? There's interesting dynamics when it comes about. And so for years, this person had like a hold on me, even when I had walked away, even when it came to light, the person would, you know, every once in a while reach out. And we would talk, and it was that line right there that I would remember. That's not right. But in the midst of it, there was a protective quality about this person for me from everybody else except for that person. And that's complicated.
Real complicated.
That's real complicated.
And I wonder how much of this stems from what we've grown up seeing, even as children. Yeah. So like one of these stats, the single best predictor of children becoming either perpetrators or victims of domestic violence later in life is whether they have grown up in a home where it took place. I just wonder how much of this we would have avoided if we didn't come up seeing it and it wasn't so accepted and we talked about it, because that was the other thing. It went on with our grandparents, it went on with our parents, and it was, you don't talk about that. We're not going to talk about it. What goes on in the house stays in the house. So many of these things I also believe have been cycles, and it's been passed along, and it's become the norm. So then it is so complicated because it's so much. It's built into our history, it's built into our self-worth, it's built into our need for something, it's built into how they're presenting, because abusive people, they can present real well.
And it can be built into levels like, oh, he only hit me once versus my friend who's getting knocked around every Friday night, right? There can be levels to it, right? I remember, because me and my ex-husband, that wasn't an abusive relationship, it wasn't domestic violence, but when it was time for us to get divorced, I remember women saying, he's not beating you.
Well, at least he's not beating you.
It was like, at least he's not beating you. And I was sitting there, and part of me was like, was I supposed to wait until he did? And the other part of me was like, that means how normal is that? And that's like a level to get to in order to be able to have something wrong in your relationship or something like that. So in
every relationship is going to be complicated. Mm-hmm. But in each relationship, a woman or a man is going to know how much they're going to take. I mean, you're going to come to a point where you're going to say, this is as much as I can take, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And then right then, you have to know what your avenues are. You know, what your plan is to get out of it.
Sometimes people can't think clearly. I mean,
you take your own time.
We're coming from a place of outside of it, and we're coming from a place of logically, this is what you should do. Emotionally, and here's the thing, we know people don't know how much they can take because they end up dead.
Well, that's true. A lot of people go back until the person finishes.
And I honestly think part of the reason is because we don't give them space to say, you know what, I understand you may still love them, and you can leave them with love. It can be an act of self-love. It can be you loving them until they get themselves together, but you can leave them with love. It's like cut everything off, and that person is sitting there who has already been isolated and scared, and whatever the case may be, that part can frighten them. And this, I'm just saying this as a tool to help be able to move them out. That it can be that revolutionary love. But you can't just discount whatever connection or feeling that they have, or assume that they're going to be thinking in that mode at that moment. That's why people from the outside get so confused. They're like, I don't understand. No, I don't understand. Did you look at your face? Did you, And one of the things was, people looked at me and said, you didn't seem like the typical victim. You didn't seem like the victim. Like, you didn't seem like you needed help, or we knew, or there were so many different things that it's always easy from the outside to say what needs to be done to get somebody out. but what's not being heard is what the person in that moment was thinking of, like, this is what I really would have needed to be able to know.
That's one of the questions I want us to get to, though. What would we have needed to get out? But I want us to be clear that love is abuse. Abuse is not love.
Right. It's not.
So it is not love. So let's draw that line. Abuse is not love. And us appearing to take that on is love. I remember somebody, oh, he slapped me. He really loved me. Like, he would not have done that if he didn't really love me. That is a twisted, confused perception of love. And I believe it's almost a trick of the enemy. If I can just keep you in this, and if I can keep you, so it comes to a point, I believe sometimes we are truly blinded and we are so lost and out of ourselves where we really believe that this is love. And then you have others who are, I'm just scared to leave. What if he does kill me? What if she does kill me? What if she takes my children away from me? So how do we navigate and make sure that we're surrounded by resources and talk about it enough where we know that, okay, you're not the only one going through this now. And if people, even like in the church, we're talking about this, and I know I'm not the only one, but there's now 10 other people in here going through this exact same thing. Can we form a network? Can we put our resource together? Maybe we can partner up. But if we don't talk about it, but are we free to really talk about it? Or are we open enough where we're not going to be the judgment? And people, if somebody comes to you, you're not going to say, you're stupid because you don't leave. And I believe we've all done that
Everybody, like I said, everybody's situation is different. Everybody's situation is their own peculiar way. They, like she said, that you're coming into a relationship already broken a lot of times. And a person preys on you knowing that either you need this or you need that. Either you're used to this or you're used to that. So every situation is not going to be the same. My own personal situation, I'm not on the outside looking in. I'm actually a victim of domestic violence. I can stand here and say, ain't nobody never put their hands on me, but it was mental abuse. You know, putting me down, calling me names, making me feel like I was like the ugly duckling, secluding me from my family. You know, oh, you can't go here. Oh, you have a time limit to get here. You know, oh, you can't bring the kids here. Why did it take you more than 5 minutes to get to the store or to the mailbox and back? Did you look the mailman straight into the eye? That wasn't, you know, physical abuse. Nobody could look at me. We were picture perfect. We had the 2-story house and a large, but then I was the poor little girl who married rich and wanted to be the kept trophy wife. You know, so all my job was to sit and look pretty. But I took all of that mental abuse and control, you know, but nobody could see the misery that you actually live in. And like I said, it's only so much in each situation that a person is going to take. You know, true, every situation is different. And people heal different. You might be abused from a black eye or somebody putting their hands on you. That don't make your abuse any more or any less than what I went through. You know, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't want the public perception that we're coming down on one type of people. Oh, this person is stupid because they stayed with this person, or this person because they went back to this person. Everybody's situation is different, and only you in that situation is going to know, you know, when it's time.
But so what you were just speaking to is, what you're saying is, in that moment, what would you have needed? What could have been something that could have supported? And what I know is that, no, we don't talk about this because somebody's going to judge us. We don't talk about,
a lot of people are afraid.
Right, we don't talk about it. And so when you said, can we bring the support together and the resources without judging, I shook my head because, no, I had a friend in college who, like we would go get restraining orders on her husband, like I knew the procedure, like it was ridiculous. And I would keep her daughter with me, and I would have a note with me, about her daughter. But when she went back, I could either be like, I can't rock with you no more because you keep going back. Or I could sit here and be like, okay, I'm going to try and be as supportive as I can until you get to that point where you move. We don't move out of jobs that are killing us. We don't, change our health lifestyle that's killing us. So we take a lot more than we should. And if we could talk about it, and I know we can't talk about it because if people come into my treatment room to talk about stuff they can't talk to their partner about, they can't talk to their family about, they can't talk to anybody about. So I think that is the first step. of.
A lot of people don't go to counseling too, and that's
They don't. But
definitely
even if you had in your support group, if you could just say, look, I don't know. I just need someone to listen. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do. Before us saying, like you said, you got to do this, and none of us are up here saying somebody is stupid for saying or somebody's stupid for this. That's not what we're saying. We're saying how to be there and support them in that moment so that they feel held and can come up out of it.
Yeah. Let me just give out a number just in case people are not going to stay with us the whole time. 301-304-4120, 301-304-4120. So if you are in a domestic violence situation and you want to talk about it, we are a no judgment zone. You can hear that we are passionate about wanting everybody to be whole and to be free, but we're here and can help refer to outside resources and people who can help. So just want to put that out there.
Okay, so I was a victim as well. One of the things though that I was feeling, I had a way out. My daughter gave me a way out and told me. But I had to get in my head that she's saying I can come to her house. She's saying I can come to her house. But I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to do different things to her home. You know, so I had to get, God, it's been, I don't know how many years, 8 years, and I still feel stuff from it.
passionate.
But you have to get to that point, and you have to think that you're really worth it. And it can be difficult, and it can stay with you a long time before you're healed.
Okay, take your time. Take your time.
Anyway, but you have to get to that point where you say, okay, I'm really worth it. This really, I mean, you know that it's not working wherever you've been. You know it's wrong. You know it's horrible. You know it's killing you. You know that. You know that. But you've got to find it in yourself where you can even get to the point where you're willing to accept help. Help can come at you all day long.
Yes.
And you may not take it. And I think it's because we've been so broken and trampled on, and we really feel like we're not worthy. And we feel like if I can just stay a little longer, you know, maybe something will change. You know nothing's going to change. You know that. But you don't want to burden someone else because you feel like you've been burdening this person you're in a relationship with. You know, you've been made to feel these types of ways. So it just, you know, we have to learn to get to the point where we realize that we are worth the love. We are worth the extra attention that people want to give us. We're worth it.
Absolutely, it's real, it's deep, it takes time, it's not automatic. I don't think any of us went away the first time. Like sometimes it takes years.
I think it also goes, it should start with like our young people.
Before this age.
You know, with our young people, because our young people, they're going to see signs. And they're going to see what parents is not showing the love that they want. You know, hormones is kicking, and they want attention from somebody else that's what they think is love. You know, but they got to be ready to, you know, say no to the red flags and know their self-worth. Know that I'm not going to take this. Be the person that breaks the chain. Yeah, mama might be getting beat. Mama might even be hiding the fact that she's getting beat, but you still know that. You know that's not right. You know that's not what you want. Be the person that's strong enough to break the chain. Know to yourself this is not what you want. You know, or else you will wind up repeating it because it's a learned behavior.
It is, and you have to talk to the kids about it. Jerron and I now, we talk about it, and he asks questions about it, and we have to. I remember, I don't even know if you remember, but you were in the 5th grade when that little girl smacked you in your face. Do you remember that?
I remember it.
6th grade or 4th grade. We were living in Arms. We're 5th grade, 6th grade. But you remember it was
Right.
5th or 6th. It was young, and it was it your girlfriend? I think it was your girlfriend. So it was like his girlfriend, and she smacked him. He was like, "Mom, I remember you came home," because he was like, "Mom, it hurt," and he was like, "I really wanted to smack her back, but you've taught me not to hit girls." And in that moment, I was like, I'm so proud of you that you didn't hit him back, that you didn't hit her back. But I'm like, I need to talk to her parents, because it's not okay for her to be smacking on you and putting her hands on you, because now you've put him in a situation where, okay, this really hurt. I'm not supposed to hit girls. But I remember my mother teaching us as girls, Jen, do you remember this? Don't put your hand on no man unless you want to get hit back. And so often as women, we become the abusers, and we become the ones who are tearing down, and we become the ones who are
guys,
violent.
Look out for the girls that's setting you up for the okie doke, okay? I'm so serious. They're setting you up. They're setting you up. They want you, and they're going to do what they have to do to keep you. And even if that means, you know, screaming that you did something to them. And, you know, like I said, I've worked with people reporting, making reports on guys for no reason, you know, and then the guys get a record or something because of what a girl messed up your life, you know. So you really have to be vigilant. Guys get some bad reps. I mean, a lot of times people right now are saying, you know, police show up at your door and they always take the guy first. But you knew she was crazy. You knew she was going to go off, you know. So, I mean, don't just go into it blind and talk about, you know, if your mind says, I'm a hit and be out of it, because that's not how it's going to go down. Some girls are really setting you up. So you have to be really vigilant with that.
Guys, what do you think, Renee? What's on your mind? What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
It really does start with our young.
Yeah, but it starts with us too, and what they see. Because we can't, you know, that old adage, you know, do what I say
and not what I do.
No, you can't do that, because it doesn't work anymore. It's not working, and you can see by the products, our seed that's out here. You can see that it's not working.
Right. Right. Hey, Brother John, how are you? And it's not. So we have to make sure that what we're modeling is right, and what we're modeling is
So
real.
if you have any questions, please post them. So
Yes. Oh, checking in on Facebook if anybody has questions or comments. Sorry, I have this from you. But you just spoke to something about what we can do, and even modeling as examples. And there are concrete ways that we as people can help, and I want us to actually talk about some of these concrete ways and different things that we can do. And shout out to Nicole Stamp. So she compiled a list for some of her actually male friends who were asking her, how can I make a difference and help with these? And one of the things she said, and this is goes for all people, when you see something happening, when you see someone who is abusive, when you see someone using misogynistic language, when you see someone doing those things, call them out on it. That's not cool. That's crappy. Like, that's a crappy thing to do. We don't call each other out on our mess. And how can we say that we're friends and we're each other's keepers, and we're not willing to call each other out on our mess? And we don't call each other out necessarily in front of everybody, but if you know something's not right and that's your sister or that's your brother, like, go to them and talk to them. Do you all think it would be different if we were willing to call people out?
So, you know, you just asked me a minute, what was I thinking? And I'm the mother. We have 3 boys now. And we're talking about starting with the children. It really does start with, and we have to watch some of the things that we say, right? We say, you know, be nice. You know, go ahead and give them a hug. Don't be mean. Go ahead and give them a hug, right? Like, we don't realize some of the things that we're putting into an expectation. So my son was at a homecoming dance. It's 4 homecoming dance, right?
Yeah, homecoming at 4.
Cute little thing, but that's a side note. And he wanted to dance with the little girl, and he went up to her, and she said no, and his father didn't think anything of it, and I said, you know, hey, it's okay. Like, you can be okay with hearing no. You can dance by yourself. And this is no blame to the mother. The mother said, go ahead and dance, be nice. And I was like, she doesn't have to. Now, this is something that's so innocent, it happens. It could be like, oh, you share, right? But from a young age, learning how to appropriately let people have their space and know their space, and not have this expectation of, you've got to dance with me, you've got to let me hold your hand, things like that. it really does start, like you said, even way younger than that.
Can you read this one just because you say that?
Yes,
read this,
I can.
or actually, John, you read this one because this goes to that point.
Oh, okay.
Read that for me.
Reframe how you think of consent. Don't go for it until someone yells no. Slow down at every step. Listen with your ears or ask with your words for the word yes. And then you can escalate the encounter together. Seek explicit, enthusiastic, and active consent before you proceed. Proceed together. Observe the other person's body language for the hesitations that mean no.
Reframing how we think of consent. I know with the kids, especially kids, I don't know. I'm a youth pastor too, so I'm always hugging the kids. But if it's children, I don't know. I say, can I have a hug? I don't know, even with Parker, I'm like, can I have a hug? He's like, yeah, I can hug. But sometimes they say, no, I don't want to hug you. And I say, okay, and the parents will do that, go ahead. And I say, no, and I'll say, what about a high five? Because I want to respect your space. And we have to teach people that they can have their space respected. And even with consent, we talk about even with sexuality and things. Ask for a yes. It can be real sexy. You can make that real sexy. You want me to keep going? You want me to, like make that sexy. This is real talk, y'all. We're gonna be real about it.
Yeah.
Versus when you see somebody who looks uncomfortable, they look like they don't want to do it. I've been in positions and situations and relationships where I've had sex and I didn't want to do it. And even in marriage, and you feel like I don't want to do this, but this is the right thing to do. And it is very uncomfortable. But if we are in tune with someone and we can say, you don't want to do this, and we are good with stopping and saying, I'm going to stop right here, we're changing the way we see consent versus, oh, she didn't say no or he didn't say no, but you're totally not into this. And so much of the domestic violence becomes sexual. It turns into sexual violence. It turns into rape. And we believe that because we're in relationships with people, we can't be raped by them. But when you're saying no, it's no. And then men don't come forward with rape either because they're like, oh, how does that look? A man saying I've been raped. But yet men are raped too. And men are groped. And men feel some type of way because that's supposed to be something that we celebrate in our culture. Robert John, what you go ahead, Jen.
No, I'm just gonna say I saw a video and it wasn't funny, but the lady was just walking up to men and grabbing their crotches, and I guess it was supposed to be a joke just to see their reactions. And somebody said, some guys were like, "That's what's up, that's funny," and I'm like, "No, that's not. Like that's assault. Like that's cool.
That's truly assault.
Yeah, like you can't.
And any man can report that as assault.
Yeah.
And you can be arrested if you walk up and grope somebody. Just letting you know that.
Yeah. I've seen the video too.
Funny.
I think I saw that, and because one of the guys, like Kurt, he was like, if I was a one man and I just did that to you, I would be getting arrested right now. Like that's not, because some of them were like, this, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
It's not cool.
We got one other brother in the room, so I was waiting to see if he had anything to say because I saw thoughts running through. But men. Reframing, women, reframing, people, us reframing, asking for consent, making consent different. So this is important too, because so much of domestic violence comes from misogynistic behavior in a patriarchal society that believes women are less than. So when we don't teach that women are equal, just normal culture will teach that women are less than. So read that one for us.
If there are little boys, teen boys, and young men in your life, role model that role model that the feminine is not the less than. Challenge them on their dismissive ideas around what counts as girl stuff. Buy books and watch TV and movies that celebrate female characters. Verbally challenge their stereotypes about what men do and how women are lesser. Seeing women as people starts in infancy.
I gotta say
What you
something.
said? I didn't hear what you said. Seeing women what?
Seeing women as people starts in infancy.
I gotta tell you, this came up in our house. There was conversation, and on the conversation I overheard, well, she doesn't respect male authority. And I was like, what is male authority? And no one had challenged the person using this term. And they fumbled, like, well, because I'm a male, you gotta respect me because I'm a man. And that was the whole extent of that. And we know this is something that comes up commonly, right? So challenging right? And saying, what exactly does that mean? Like, you don't have to like go toe to toe with them, but saying, what does that mean? Because those are the concepts that are just thrown around, and nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
And our language matters. It's another stat here, y'all. It's another stat. Some of these things, it talks about how doctors and women, be mindful of how you introduce women, particularly at work functions. Often men are introduced with job titles and accolades. Women are introduced as the lovely or the beautiful. Stop it. Female doctors are 20% less likely to be introduced with their titles than male doctors. So even these small little things in how we do, even with the little girls, we'll say, oh, you're so cute, and you know, oh, that your dress is so pretty, and we'll tell the boys, like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. But making sure that we're balancing out so that we don't believe everything that we have is predicated on our looks. Like our worth is predicated on our looks. So now I'm gonna do anything and let anybody treat me any type of way as long as I look pretty, because I'm gonna just present a certain way. And now, well, what about my worth? What about my intellect? What about my personality? What about my talents? What about those things?
I was listening. Y'all sound, obviously you sound a little one-sided to me, but the thing is that I worked in the school system, which is not so patriarchally dominated. More women than men, especially in Baltimore City. And it's a good place to be sexually harassed, really. You know, because you have women who are in positions of authority, maybe for the first time in their lives, and they are anxious to do what they had done to them back to someone else. And it's a matter of what are the circumstances behind it. I know you're talking about domestic violence and serious, problem, but it's not all because some men hate women. Some men just hate the fact that they're powerless, and they strike out because they got to be dominant over somebody, and this is the person who's closest to them and who they can feel like they can dominate without getting locked up. But it sometimes leads to death, and sometimes leads to being locked up. It's never good. But it goes beyond just simple misogynistic attitude. Oh, absolutely. That was only part of what we're talking about, part of it. So, and the rape is always about power, and a lot of the abuse is about power. So you're absolutely right. I'm curious to know, though, what do you mean it's one-sided? What is one-sided about? Oh, well, obviously there need to be some more men here to we want to hear from male women.
I want to say this. In my 20-year career, I actually have been more, on the male side. I've always worked with females. Females always, making reports. But guys, it takes so much more for them to make the report. I've always really been there for the guys. And pretty much tonight, that's what I really am here. I don't want it to be one-sided. I want guys to know that their concerns are going to be addressed too. But I don't think guys have the same concern as women, because men are more forceful than women. I mean, physically. That's not general. Actually. I mean, it's equally. Well, I don't know. It's equally, because women can control you in a situation mentally. No, and they can, women actually will come at you in other ways. As a man, I'm going to mess up your whole career. I'm going to take all your money. I'm going to take your kids. They have other ways of coming at you and making your life very miserable.
I think we're doing a lot of generalities because there are same-sex couples.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I think we really need to watch the generalities of how men do, abuse versus how women do it.
And a lot of the shelters and things that have been usually catered to women or represent women are now open more to the men because of the same-sex marriages, and more they're seeing more domestic violence reports from men.
And in same-sex relationships, like domestic violence anywhere is never okay, and we have to talk about it. And I think there are different levels to what it the root causes of it within the different situations and the different scenarios, and why I'm staying, why I'm not leaving, why I've started to abuse. Have I been abused? Did I not get the help that I needed afterwards, before? You know, all of those things, they actually matter.
And my bad for people who are not, or gender non-conforming or whatever they choose to identify as also.
Yes, so everybody, so
Yep,
all
everybody.
people, everybody, and we have to work on our inclusive language, but everybody. So let's go back to some of these concrete ways that we can help.
Can I just add to, we don't want to exclude domestically violent people, family members.
Yes.
You know, like brothers and sisters that are having problems. That's considered domestically violent relationships too. Mothers and sons and daughters and fathers. Those are considered domestically violent relationships too. If you have a roommate that you're living in a house with, that's considered a domestically, if you and your roommate get into something, you guys live together. You're on that lease, that's considered domestically violent.
Let me ask you a question, because you said you do special operations. When it comes to children, I've actually, like, between two children, I've had situations where they're like, well, we handle it differently. So do you have any advice for, like, if a child is getting constantly hit or picked on or bullied by a cousin or a brother or sister that lives in the house, what are the avenues, or what steps can be taken?
So if it's that close proximity between the kids, the parents, of course, have to step in, and they can provide like counseling for the two. But it's really up to the parent to control the minors in their house.
You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, but I kind of think that it does go back, because when it is so close and intimate, I think that's kind of, the system really doesn't offer support. So that it goes back to what are the parents willing to do. So I think that is until you get to the level of I'm going to press charges, which we know becomes another mess with the system and children being involved in the system. And I'm glad
the system is not going to step in until the parent actually brings a press, like she says, press charges. And then what they're going to tell them is to provide counseling for the kids, you know, and find something on their own.
If I can be forgiven, I was just thinking back to a long time ago. Domestic violence was the way that people organized society at one time. I mean, in your household, you had domestic violence. If you did something wrong, broke something, and then you got your butt torn up. I mean, that's what they're calling domestic violence. You know, someone comes in and asserts their strength over someone else and knocks them down. It's domestic violence. But we had a lot of that growing up. I was just looking at, when did it turn to a point where you cannot, now I'm not longing for those days, my grandmother was kind of violent, but I'm just saying, when did it turn where this came to be domestic violence?
I think when the research showed that it's screwing us up, and the research showed that those of us, you know, who were beat on and different things, we turned out and had different issues, and we perpetuated the violence and different things like that. I think it's the research that has shown how violent it is, and us even coming to know who God is. Like, we can't sleep on, with me, you know, this is still Wednesday, with Wisdom Wednesdays, so we can't sleep on our faith. I remember I used to be all for spanking. Like, you can spank you to that. I didn't really spank you with a belt. Like, I'd pop them, I might do a jab. My mom would be like, don't punch him like that. But then I read the book, Spare the Rod. We're gonna be real, Spare the Rod.
Spoil the child.
Spare the child, spoil the rod. So it was reversed. And then in that book, it was about basically the psychological effects of abuse. And I actually had to read that in divinity school, and it changed my perception and my perspective. And I think as we grow and as we evolve, we got to be real. Like, that stuff was abusive then. It was abusive back then. We accepted it because it was the norm. But when you're walking around and you got whelps up and down your body and you can't sit still, or you have black eyes, and your daddy's being slapped, or your mama's being slapped, and something like that, that's not okay. And it wasn't okay back then, even though it was the norm. It wasn't okay. Let's go to Rhonda then.
But you're just showing your kid, if you're putting your hands on a kid, you're whooping them and everything, you're saying that when you get mad, when you get angry, this is how you're supposed to react. And you're actually teaching your kid a way to, a coping mechanism. And if that's what they think that they're supposed to do, they're just going to continue to perpetuate it. So hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to get away from, hurting people. That's why I said you have to dare to be the person who breaks the chain, who says, okay, I didn't like this. I didn't like what I saw. I'm not going to do this in my life. I'm not going to have it done in my life.
Janelle broke that cycle, huh?
Broke it.
Because I used to get you.
I used to get popped in my mouth all the time. I had stuff to say.
I have a colleague who is writing a paper now about I think it's post-slavery traumatic syndrome. Like, I don't remember if that's the right term for it, but as I'm sitting here listening, and you even said the word wealth, you said black eye. You also got to think about how far back we've just seen, like, that's the way things have been handled. So to think, it puts a lot to say, okay, let's be the generation to change this and to stop this. This goes deep. We always talk about this. This goes deep. Deep. And so,
400 years.
deep, right? Like you can't discount that, right? And so you can't discount generation to generation in our DNA. Some of that is comfortable, and nobody wants to talk about that. Some of that is comfortable.
That's true.
Go ahead.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm agreeing really that, some of this violence is in our makeup, and in our way that throughout history we learn to understand things expeditiously by being slapped. I'm not in favor of it. I'm just saying, where does the violence fit in? If you make your society nice and peaceful, and we still have to deal with North Korea. I've seen some North Korean soldiers. They are hard people. And, you got the rest of the world that you're saying, well, we're going to show you the way by being the light of the world. And the rest of the world is harsh. It seems that it has to be a balance somewhere.
So why not be the light of the world who knows how to defend yourself?
But you're still being violent, though. I see your point. Like,
but I mean, if you're defending yourself,
you can defend yourself, but at the end of the day, it's still violence. But like I don't. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna talk to you once. I'm gonna put you in the corner. You're gonna get a timeout. You're gonna get something taken away. Like, we're not gonna keep having conversations. That's just me. No, I'm not, because I don't think it takes all. Like, I don't think you have to beat the crap out of them with a belt. But like,
Right.
If it's something and you can't get it, then yeah, I'm gonna pop your butt like once or twice.
So I gotta tell you, Stacy, her name is Stacy Patton, I think that's her name, and I follow her on Facebook, and she is adamant about not hitting children. Now, she doesn't have children. She comes under fire for a lot of that. No. I'm saying that because she'll admit it. She'll say, look, I don't have children. I come under fire for a lot of that. And when I first read her, I was like, But she made one statement that changed my whole life. She was like, you can't go around hitting an adult because they don't do what you want them to do. Why do we think it's okay to do this to little people? But that changed my whole life, because that's illegal. Like, if you hit a grown, if I come over there and hit you, I'm gonna get locked up. But it's a little person, and so we think I can make you do what I need you to do, and I'm gonna hit you.
That's not what it's about for me. For me, it's just like a form of like correction. And when you're little, you don't know right from wrong. Like when I was 5, I used to pull buttons off my shirt and stick them up my nose. Would I do that now and go to the emergency room? No. Like, I'm grown up. Like, I know that's stupid and wrong. But when I was 5, it was pretty freaking cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could say, but yeah, when I was 5, that was the coolest thing in the world. And I had to go to the emergency room a few times before I realized, this isn't smart. But now that I'm grown, I know not to put stuff up my nose. Like,
I think it's amazing how we evolve, though, and I think it's good to hear all of our different opinions. I think it's great that we all don't agree, because it's in the conversation that different people can hear what they need, that different people can get what they want, that we can all evolve. But I just want us to be open, and I do not sleep on the power of God, even though stuff runs so deep. Like, I just believe it's some of those things that I just believe that because we're not intended to be, we're supposed to have abundant living and supposed to have that love, and I believe that we should be able to defend ourselves in all that. I totally believe that we have to be able to defend ourselves.
Defending yourself is not the same as purposely abusing someone. That's totally different.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about domestic violence on a person and someone getting, beat in a relationship, not not defending yourself.
Or
Like if
emotionally abused. Right. Yeah,
I
it's
defended
different.
myself and got locked up in Georgia.
Well, in any place you go, well, it's according to the situation.
And
And
I've never spoken publicly about this. What happens is because I inflicted the wound, I got arrested. I was the smaller person. I was 5'3", maybe 120. He was 5'9", 5'10", probably 180. Afterwards, he helped me get the charges dropped. Now, I could sit here and tell people defend yourself all day long, but I can't negate what I went through after that and what I went through in the experience of it. You understand what I mean?
There's consequences for whatever you do.
Yeah, there's consequences for whatever we do. So
but you still gotta defend.
But we have to be careful how we're advising people.
To defend
Because
yourself.
it's not me going through the consequences. If I tell somebody defend yourself at all costs, and then they're caught up in the system, I gotta be there to support them through that whole process.
Or survive. Like, I didn't fight back. I've been pushed on the ground. I've been dragged out the house. I've been choked. Not one of those times that I fight back. I couldn't win. I couldn't win the fight. So I couldn't. I didn't even believe that I could win the fight. And I do believe that we would have had to literally pick something up. And I remember my mom's taught us that too. If somebody's overpowering you, you pick up the closest thing you have and you hit them with it. And they're bigger. But at the end of the day, it's real, because when they're busted up and wounded, then you are gonna be the one who's taken away.
And it's not eye for an eye, right? Like so if someone comes at me with a fist, right, and then I pick up something and I stab them, that's not equal self-defense.
That depends.
So many women, though, are in prison right now for murdering their abusers. A lot of them happen in the middle of it.
Well, it depends.
I'm just saying we got to take all of that into consideration.
Honestly, you take all that in consideration, and we know that the justice system does not work for everyone. But you are supposed to defend yourself. And then they say, okay, you defended yourself to an extent, but when you're in the heat of it, a lot of times people go over that extent, and that's the consequence that they have to answer for. If I'm defending myself and now the threat has stopped, then yes, the justice system is supposed to say you defended yourself until the threat was stopped and it was done. But if I'm defending myself and I take it overboard because my adrenaline is so high that I want to stab him 52 more times, then I have to answer for the consequence of that. The justice system does not, I repeat, does not work for everyone. But it's supposed to defend you when you are defending yourself.
It's supposed to.
Don't put yourself in that situation. That's the thing. Or get out before you get to that point where you. I mean,
but it's not that simple.
If it's a stranger, that's a little bit different. But if you're with somebody and it gets to the point where you feel like you have to inflict pain on that person, I know it's not simple.
A lot of times the women, like she said, there's so many women that are in prison now, that they have taken this abuse for so long that when they do get fed up and all of their rage comes out, they boil up and they react. They're going at them with everything that they held in, and then that's what they wind up facing the consequences.
This is last word.
It's the difference in self-defense if a person comes at you and every time they stick their hand out, you cut them and you tell them to stop. And then when they finally realize that they're bleeding, they just stop and you stop. That's self-defense. But if you pull out your knife and then you just stab them 52 times, then that's emotional and they think, you did too much. Same with the gun. If you have a gun and you can empty the revolver or the automatic into the person, but if you take another clip and put it in and reload and start shooting them again, then they say something's wrong with you. So the idea that just defending yourself means that you understand when to stop.
Stopping the threat. Stopping the threat. And like you said, you've held in so much for so long, and I'm speaking on something I know because I've been there. You've held in so much for so long that you get blinded.
And I'm just saying be cautious of what we're advising people. I'm not saying, definitely not saying to go overboard. I'm just saying we have to exercise caution as we're advising people. That's all I'm saying.
Because the system does not work if you go over.
And y'all, we're not even advising. Like, this is conversational.
Yes,
so I don't
yeah.
want anybody to take this as like, this is conversational, so you can hear the different things, you can hear our different perspectives, you can hear what we think, what we believe. My goal is to get you to survive and to have the life that God intended, which is wholeness. So whatever that takes, survive and get to wholeness. Survive and get to wholeness. So this was really good. We have to pray because we are over time, but we can continue our talk.
I just had to say one more thing. You know, I was thinking about domestic violence, and I think about how many times I've been driving down the streets in Baltimore and see some black woman with maybe 3 or 4 kids yanking and pulling and cursing at her little black son. Now, you know, I'm not blaming every black woman for this person's action, but a lot of the hatred that some guys feel for women comes from the feelings they have for their mothers.
Yeah, you missed it, and it's parents across races who do that and yanking and pulling on their kids. So I don't want to limit that to black women because that happens across the races. But you're absolutely right. You missed part of it, Brother John. We were talking about that. We were talking about how you repeated the behavior that you did. So we definitely. So that is a good point because we were talking about how you repeat the cycles that you've seen and witnessed. So let's close out in prayer. I want to give us the number again, so anybody who needs assistance, 301-304-4120. So let us pray. God, we just thank you for the opportunity to talk about this very real topic. I pray that you would just touch and minister to each and every person who was a part of this, God. Just show us how we can come to that place of not just surviving, but thriving and living in wholeness as you've called us to be. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
If you have any questions, just write them down and we'll answer them later. Thank you.
Good night.